The fact that the people who are red-pilled are considered radical right points to the fact that so much of the mainstream narrative is controlled and dictated by the left, especially the radical left, the quote-unquote progressive left. It's not that red pillars are right-wing, no. It's that red pillars are reacting against the lies being told by the progressive left that has become the mainstream narrative. If the mainstream narrative were right-wing, we red pillars would be considered, well, we'd be considered red. We'd be called communists. We'd be called, evil commies who, Stalinists or whatever, right? But the dominant narrative at this time is left-wing, not right-wing. And therefore, we're called far right-wingers, fascists, Nazis. We're basically Hitler. Yeah. Now, the red pill is a metaphor that originated with the movie The Matrix in 1999. In the movie, the main character basically has the opportunity to continue living in a dreamlike existence that is not true to reality if he takes the blue pill. But if he takes the red pill, he will see reality as it truly is. He will discover the truth, the objective truth. And he will understand that he has been controlled by forces beyond his power that have been, just manipulating him to believe certain things that are just not true. That's where the metaphor came from. And it's a very powerful metaphor because it explains a lot about the contemporary society and the mainstream paradigm. Yeah. That mainstream narrative has been diverging from reality for quite some time. I mean, over the last few decades, and especially over the last 10 years or so, we've been noticing this divergence between what the mainstream is saying is true and what we are perceiving to be true. And so the metaphor from The Matrix is used to express when a person realizes that the mainstream narrative, the mainstream paradigm, what is being told to you and to most people in the Western democracies is just not true. It's not an ideology. It's not right-wing versus left-wing. No. That is what the mainstream is actually trying to sell you. They're trying to say that those people who are quote-unquote red-pilled are radicals. Yeah, they're radicals. And if you think about it, it's kind of funny because, see, the whole idea of being red-pilled is to look at the truth, the truth warts and all, the truth without any kind of filter, without any kind of rose-tinted glasses. And so if you think about it, it is radical because it's the radicalism of looking at the truth in the face. What I'm trying to say is that, see, the red pill is not about falling for conspiracy theories. The red pill is about looking at the truth, digging, looking beyond the mask, the carapace, the facade, the lies. It's all the same thing. They are projections being put out there to convince you of a truth that's not accurate. It's not real, okay? And the truth doesn't have a political party. You see? To claim that those people who are red-pilled are following some political ideology is foolish. It's like saying that math, has a political ideology or biology has a political ideology. No, it doesn't work that way. The red pill is just looking for the truth and letting the chips fall where they may. Now, why is it that the mainstream narrative, the narrative that the opinion makers, the elites, why is the mainstream narrative so discredited? Well, because we have seen time and time again that a lot of times the mainstream narrative is concocted to shore up the financial and political interests of one group over another. And that this mainstream narrative, this mainstream lie that we are told in so many different aspects of our lives, right? It's only later that we realize that it was all a lie. For instance, the war in Iraq, the defining moment of the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. What happened with the war in Iraq? It was based on a lie, on a whole bunch of lies. And it didn't solve any problems in the Middle East. On the contrary, it created even more problems. And the lies that were told back in 2003, who did they serve? Huh? Whose best interest was served by those lies? Those lies that led to a war where hundreds of thousands of people were killed, maimed, displaced, sent into refugee camps. I mean, not hundreds of thousands, millions of people. The nation of Iraq was destroyed by a whole series of lies that at the time everybody believed and nobody questioned. And see, ultimately, that's the thing about the red pill. The red pill is not an ideology. The red pill is simply a mode of inquiry. It is asking questions, the right questions. Asking who benefits, cui bono. Asking why is this being spread around, this lie being spread around? Whose interests are benefiting from this? And the thing is, see, when you start looking at the world that way, in a skeptical manner, in a way where you're trying to understand the answers to problems and trying to understand the real motivation of people who are telling lies and lies that are demonstrable lies, well, when you start acting that way, you start undermining the power and influence of elite power structures. That's what happens, you see? See, because if an elite power structure is telling lies, if the people in the elites, in the people who are opinion makers, are spreading a narrative that does not conform to reality, and you start to question that, well, they react. They react very negatively. They react sometimes violently. And the thing is, and the dangerous part is that, see, these people have the power of the state to enforce their lies. And the more truth we point out, the more we undermine their authority, the more likely they will use force and censorship to silence anybody who dissents. And so that's why we're starting to see sort of like a dividing of the waters, if you will. There are those who, fully believe in the mainstream narrative. And then on the other hand, you have those people who are red pillars, who believe in the truth and let the chips fall where they may. It seems to me that as this gap widens, as those people who promulgate the mainstream narrative start distancing themselves more and more from reality, their reaction to those speaking the truth, to people such as myself, is going to be more and more extreme. And we're already starting to see it. We see people like Alex Jones, and Alex Jones is a buffoon, but every once in a while the buffoon tells the truth now, doesn't he? And that was the whole point of having a court jester. Alex Jones was a court jester, a buffoon, and most of the things that he said were silly and ridiculous, but every once in a while he would say something that was really goddamn true, and it freaked people out. And that's why he was silenced. And now that they've silenced Alex Jones, they're coming for other names. They're coming for Stefan Molyneux. They're coming for Dave Rubin. And these are middle-of-the-road people. These people are not extremists. They're not, advocating violence of any sort whatsoever. In any normal society, they'd be sort of like, dismissed as boring milquetoast centrists. And yet they're the ones who are next on the hit list of the mainstream narrative, of those pushing the mainstream narrative. You see? Because even these centrists, even these very milquetoast and very polite people who don't want to step on anybody's toes, even they are becoming an enemy of the mainstream narrative, because the mainstream narrative is separating itself more and more, distancing itself more and more from reality. It's becoming insane. And see, this is the advantage of those people who are red-pilled. And this is why the red pill matters. And this is why I'm doing this video. You see, because we can examine the things that we believe in. We can examine them. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. We're wrong and we discard the idea, and that's that. And we move on, right? But those people who are attached to a narrative, to a mythos, to a fairy tale about reality that is not accurate, those people cannot afford to question reality. They cannot. Because their whole mental structures will collapse. And that's why you have people, so-called SJWs, social justice warriors, feminists, people on the left, progressives. They cannot afford to question the story that they have bought, the mythos, the mythology that they believe in. Because if they question it, everything that they hold dear will vanish like so much dust. And so, of course, these are the people who are most violently against us. And like I said before, were they on the right? And promulgating all kinds of extreme right-wing ideologies, we red pillars would be considered communists. We'd be called communists, Stalinists, whatever, right? Yeah, you see, because the red pill, like I say, we're not right-wing, we're not left-wing. We just go where the truth is. But you have to decide to go after the truth.